Kyle is home from the Army. That's the only time I get to game with him. And I had a character for those one-off games. Maybe it is just the new, fresh thing to do. Is like, as long as you've got a new idea, that's what makes it really fun.
Well, but going from that, constantly injecting new things. Okay, let's talk about just using the name lineages.
Lineage.
And we've talked about this before. Using the name Skywalker, or Jason uses a very specific name for all of his characters.
Yes, it's true.
But the characters aren't always exactly the same. Now, we tease you that they are always the same. But
They're basically the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only time I can very specifically remember your Star Wars character not being the same is when I was running the old Jedi campaign, and you couldn't be a smuggler.
No Daenerys will ever be a Jedi.
But didn't I do it anyway?
I think you were still the pilot, yes.
Yeah, I think I did. But that's kind of...
Is that a cop-out, or is it just something that's become your thing?
That's really more of a joke now than anything else. I do that for the humor factor. And then it also is really easy to come up with a name. I've already got a last name, and I just have to come up with a first name. So
Right.
So what you're saying is I got to make a Spagoli.
I would say, and don't all the first names rhyme too?
Not always.
Vance, Rance, Vance, Dance.
I pretty well run through those.
He ran through them pretty good.
The last one was Rick.
Played a lot of Star Wars over the years.
R.I.Q. Crash.
That's
Daenerys.
right.
And I didn't even play the first Daenerys.
That's true.
You played a Mark Daenerys.
Yes, but I'm saying that the first Daenerys was Matt's character. Right.
Yeah, our friend Matt played a character.
I feel
25
like
years
that's
ago.
almost just like a naming mechanism more so than, well, I don't know how much you bring it into it.
Like a naming convention or something like that.
Yeah, like how you guys have the thing where you name halflings after restaurants.
That's Mike's.
That's really funny, though.
I love that. I think it's hilarious.
I think that it would be a lot of fun. When we always talk about what are we going to do next, or what's something that we want to do. A generational campaign of all knights probably would be pretty fun.
I would love to do that one.
Totally agree.
Knights of the Round Table.
Playing a lord character or a knight character, by its nature, is a lineage character.
Right.
You are defined by your family name.
Yeah. Well, it's like you couldn't even get into the tournament unless you could prove your nobility so many generations back.
You would have to have a backstory for these characters. You couldn't just be some...
I'm Sir Schlub of, Schlubville.
Well, you could be.
That's the game that Dan's not coming to.
Well, Dan will just play Sir Schlub.
I was going to say, Dan is planning on going on vacation during that game.
Because I disagree that it's a necessity to play that game to have a backstory. If you are a knight by virtue of being a knight means you qualify for your knighthood. So, yes, of course you have a family. Is it necessary for the story? Not necessarily.
It depends. I guess it depends on how you want to play that. Do you want to play it like just pure like a fantasy, or do you want to try and play it like a straight up European?
I know Dan
inside
loves the movie Knight's Tale. So
to be the bad guy from that.
No, you could be take another cue from A Song of Ice and Fire, the Onion Knight. He's not descended from...
Nope.
So
nobility.
somebody who was granted
lordship. He grew up in Flea Bottom.
That's who Dan's going to play.
Exactly.
Somebody an honorary knight.
Or somebody who, because of an act of valor, has been granted knighthood.
Yes, a new knight.
But even though the Onion Knight doesn't have the lineage, he still has an interesting backstory. Yep. He's still from Flea Bottom. He's still some smuggler that...
He may be the only redeemable character in the whole story.
That could be.
That is a bold statement, and I would probably agree with you.
Yeah. Jon Snow.
Jon Snow's still good. He's still my favorite.
Yeah.
Me being me, and the people who know me know that there was a me before and there's a me now, right? And I live by a philosophy of where you come from does not necessarily have anything to do with where you're going, okay? So that's why I guess I don't place a whole lot of emphasis on backstory. I would rather play out an arc rather than tell you about my arc. You know what I mean?
You want to start the arc from the beginning.
That's why I love 3D6 down the line, low level schmucks, and starting at the beginning, like really starting at the beginning.
We should really Dan's ideal game would be starting at infancy.
No,
starting very young.
That's why Dan, I think, likes Aces and Eights, because you randomize everything.
You're building it. You're actively building it.
Right.
This is another discovery I've made just recently. There are two types of games. One's where you roll randomly and you might get a good character, and ones where you have points for which you can buy stats, where no matter what you do, never have enough points.
Mark doesn't have enough
yes,
points.
that's Mark's desire to build the ultimate well-rounded, I have no flaws.
Well, it's not that I have no flaws. This is like people are more than I can swing a sword or I can cast a spell. They have other things that they can do.
Maybe you shouldn't be able to swing a sword or cast a spell.
Going back to what...
But you can cook an omelet.
I can do both of those and cook an omelet.
Shannon.
Going back to what Dan was saying, I don't feel like the backstory is necessarily something that... I feel like it's more something for you. So that... Because everything that's ever happened to you as a person, it does define you, even though, it's not necessarily has anything to do with where you're going, but it still is. It's made you who you are today.
Right.
And so having a backstory is not necessarily a bad thing. It's letting you know why your character is who he or she is today. I think that in a way, there's two ways of thinking about this, and we're kind of going away from the generational campaign and going into backstories, but that's okay because I think they kind of go hand in hand.
They really do.
Yep. You have two different types of backstory. You have the backstory that you pre-generate before you play game one, and then you have the backstory that you build as if you're starting episode one of an episode of a show, and then you start injecting your backstory to define the things that you were doing,
which are just about all my characters. Because I've got the horse thief. That was not a story we came up with when I made that character. As you played him, he became the story.
After the third time he stole a horse, it was like, well, it's what I do.
Yeah, and at that point in time, it's what he's always done.
And he started calling himself Lord.
Yes, it's self-appointed. Yeah.
Sean likes Captain more. He likes those self-appointed titles.
Here's another thing, Sean. I don't know if you ever knew this. When Eric was first running D&D at Twilight for me and Greg and Scott, that character was an NPC.
Yep. Mine?
Yes.
Yep, Lord Vane.
So Eric made a generational campaign for you that you weren't even involved in.
Lord Vane was awesome.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that is, we're all talking about as players, but as game masters, I get a lot of fun doing a generational campaign.
You did that a lot with Shadowrun.
I did it. I did.
Actually, I think you're still doing it with Shadowrun.
I did 3 generations of Shadowrun, and I created a previous generation and then ran for the guys in the Army using this conceived generation, before. Then when I came back to the States and started running for you guys, I used those characters as the before time.
Right.
And then as I moved forward and started running for the guys, on the Monday game, I used the previous one as the before time.
Except for my guys who were all hoodwinked and shoved in a van and disappeared.
When in Rome.
So, but I think that not only does doing something like that as a game master, it kind of gives a wink to the guys who played before, but it also it gives you NPCs to work with to drive a story forward. One of my favorite ones was using a previous NPC who was being chased by everybody because he had experimental cyberware. Sean and Brian's character found him in the back of their car hiding out and said, "You guys need to help me."
That was a Mark Dacascos movie called Drive, and it was awesome.
Well, did he make it 15 years ago?
Just about.
We had a stream of consciousness there.
For me as a player, the fact that the NPC of that story arc that was a previous character, it didn't lend any gravity to it to me.
Right.
As a player.
Right.
It did to you.
And as
a GM.
Yeah,
but to me, it would have made no difference had I not known.
Right.
It's still just an NPC in my game.
But it could also give, as a game master, give you a more fleshed out NPC as opposed to...
That is exactly right.
Just...
I knew how that character was ran because I saw it firsthand how that character was ran, so I could just do it. Now, my contention, of course, is if you ever break that, you look behind that curtain and you have that player come and play that character again, it would be completely wrong for the people who have it idealized as to how that character goes.
Yeah. And so when you're talking about generational campaigns, we're talking about games that have run, like you say, for 30 some odd years.
Right.
And I think we're all in agreement. We didn't play the same way 30 years ago that we do now.
No.
Those characters weren't created, nor can they be measured by your current bar.
Right.
They are in a totally other universe.
Right.
Just like for this example, we're talking about Shadowrun, we're talking about Beast. He existed when you were a different game master.
Right.
And that guy was playing a different game, just like we all are playing different games now.
Right.
So to me, it's apples and oranges.
Yeah. something that
I think apples and oranges go great together.
They are delicious and make a fine drink.
I don't know if Mike, I don't know if you've done this consciously, but you've done a lot of making us go back in time, starting over at different timelines, and it's really prevented a lot of the generational stuff that we could have done in Greyhawk. I mean, think about it. We could be playing characters who are descendants of our previous characters walking alongside Brian's character, who was an elf, who lives for 500 years.
That's true.
You know, we've never done anything like that.
But that we've talked about stuff like this in previous episodes, where even though we keep playing in Greyhawk, there is never any evidence in our current game of what our previous characters have done.
And is that's a conscious effort by you, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, I would try to keep your own character's exploits away from previous efforts. One of the big criticisms of Forgotten Realms is all the Uber NPCs that are in it that have done this and that. I don't really need that when I run Greyhawk. If you think about it, other than like the Circle of Eight, you don't see much of any big NPCs in Greyhawk because I have enough of them from old player characters from previous campaigns. So then the effort is just keeping those characters. That's why we always joke about the epic campaign characters being gone. You want to keep them away so that they don't influence necessarily what the other characters do. Now, if they happen to be descended from those characters, say like one of the old NPCs of Brian's is a demigod now, well, you never see that character again, and it's not going to hurt anything for those characters to be descended from them. I don't think there was ever an advantage those characters had. If anything, it might have been a disadvantage.
The one thing that I know that I can remember for a fact that my epic level character, my bard, did during Whisper Song was he set up the Whisper Song Bardic College in Ket, yes. So anybody playing D&D now in Greyhawk could say, my bard studied at the Whisper Song Bardic College in Ket. And it wouldn't necessarily be generational. It'd just be like a little twist of...
But you would have to dislike them because that's your bullshit homebrew.
It's not, we didn't make it up. It's Greyhawk.
No, you made it up.
And we're sitting here and we're talking about playing generational campaigns. I can honestly only think of one time that I've ever made a character that was the son of another character. And
what about all those Daenerys?
No.
You mean apart from that?
They're related, but I've never specified how.
And it's always like thousands of years apart.
Yeah,
what?
whenever
Star
Wars,
I'm talking about D&D, Greyhawk specifically. I can only think of making one character that was a son of a previous character. And I don't think I played him but a few months, and that campaign fizzled out and we didn't keep playing because it didn't recapture...
one of your previous characters.
Right.
Because we did the characters who were sons of Brian's character.
But I think that was a different set of circumstances. That was right after Brian had passed away. I think that was our way of, I don't know, hold on to Brian for a little while longer.
Part of the mourning process.
Yeah. Right. So, and I think that was a successful campaign. But even that we didn't play. We didn't play those characters past like 12th or 13th level, I don't think.
I don't think so.
I mean, that was about as high as they went.
Yeah.
So, and
those characters were already ridiculously badass by that level too.
Well, my character was ridiculous.
No. My character was
his
character.
His character
not so much.
Chump.
See how easily the claws come out, Jason?
I wasn't power gaming though, Dan. I wasn't power gaming.
Just comparing the size of each other's dice at this point.
If you're not, that's a great T-shirt. If you're not power gaming, you're not doing it right. And then flipping you off.
That's right. You're doing it wrong. All right. Anybody got anything else to say before we wrap it?
You're a douchebag.
Okay.
That bombshell.
That's been well documented, sir.
Holy crap.
Well, all right. I think we'll
End of
wrap it
episode
up.
thought?
Wrap it up.
Dan is
there.
wrong.
We'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye.
Follow us on Twitter.
We are at Gamers Table.
Like us on Facebook.
Listen to us on iTunes.
While you're there, write us a review.
You can also find us on Windows Marketplace.
Or on Stitcher.
Got a comment or question about the show?
Visit our website, gamerstable.com.
You can comment right there on the episode page.
Or you can send us an email, feedback@gamerstable.com.
Make sure you go to rpgpodcast.com and recommend this episode.
Interested in being a featured sponsor of Gamers Table? Email us, marketing@gamerstable.com.
If you like what you hear, click on our PayPal donate button. It keeps us coming back each week.
Thank you for listening. Remember, new episodes are released every Tuesday. Properties discussed during this podcast are the exclusive rights of their respective owners. Gamers Table is a registered trademark property of Side Tangent Productions.